Chapter 441, Silvermoon. This chapter is updated by novels.pl. Deputy Commander Ni is back. Deputy Ni, no matter how hard I try, I couldn't succeed in practice the move fish for the moon in the water. Can you give me some advice? As soon as Ni Honglu got back, Silver Sky mercenary group was stirred up and everyone was excited. Those mercenary warriors all came toward him and clustered around him, just like the moon being surrounded by a myriad of stars. Most of them were young women. They all flirted with him and followed him eagerly as if they were pursuing their beloved. Admittedly, Ni Honglu did have an extraordinary figure. He had a delicate face, robust body and amazing talent, so it was natural that a lot of girls liked him. He smiled. Today, I'm going to introduce you to a guest who could give you some good advices for your sword techniques. He pointed to Zhang Yuochen as he was speaking. Until then, did they notice a young man who stood right beside Ni Honglu? Though the young man's look wasn't as breathtaking as Ni Honglu, he was also handsome and valiant. He had a unique personality, which made people feel approachable. A dozen pairs of eyes fixed at Zhang Yuochen at the same time, but he still looked calm and relaxed instead of getting nervous. A female mercenary with a ponytail stepped out. She was in long boots and carried a snake-shaped sword on her back. She stopped in front of Zhang Yuochen. He's probably less than 25 years old. How can he give us suggestions? She scrutinized Zhang Yuochen, raised her eyebrows and shook her head lightly. Obviously, she was not enthusiastic about him. Warriors could use genuine qi to maintain their physical conditions and slow down aging. However, their eyes could not fool people. Martial masters could know the warriors' real ages through their eyes. That female mercenary was called Tiling. She had achieved the completion of Heaven Realm. She was a warrior on the Heaven Board and a leader in Silver Sky mercenary group. Therefore, it was reasonable that she looked down upon a young person who was still in their early 20s. Ni Honglu made a laugh and asked, "It should have been 7 years since you achieved the completion of Heaven Realm. Where do you rank on the Heaven Board?" Though Tiling was proud and arrogant, she respected the senior Ni Honglu very much. She bowed with her hands folded and answered, "Deputy Commander, I'm now ranked the 84,720th on the Heaven Board." Ni Honglu said, "You've made a great improvement. I remember that you were ranked after 200,000th last year." Tiling stood straight with her developed chest and lifted her chin. She was very confident and smiled. "When I undertook a task last year, I obtained 1,000-year spiritual dose. After I refined it, my cultivation had enhanced a lot. Thus, I reached the top 100,000 on the Heaven Board. If I could succeed in practicing the sword technique of inferior class, Ghost level imparted by Commander, my ranking on the Heaven Board will definitely improve." Tiling had practiced the moon sword for 5 years and was only one step away from the succeed. Ni Honglu shook his head and said, "Your talent is quite good. However, it's unlucky that you still lag badly behind this young man." Tiling was not convinced and said, "Deputy Commander, it's too early to draw such a conclusion. Although I haven't broken into the Fish Dragon realm, I didn't waste any time and continued to train over these years. Do you really think that a warrior ranked on the Heaven Board is that fragile?" Swish. Tiling hummed, mobilized the genuine qi and raised her fingers. The snake-shaped crystal sword on her back was controlled by genuine qi and flew out of the sheath and dropped into her hands. 2 gusts of swirling wind rushed out of between her feet. Meanwhile, she thrust her sword and displayed the moon sword. Suddenly, 36 sword shadows appeared in front of the sword. They simultaneously stabbed toward Zhang Yuochen's 36 vital parts on his body. Zhang Yuochen smiled slightly and slightly moved his body. Then illusory images of bodily movement appeared. After a moment, those illusory images all overlapped. Zhang Yuochen still stood in the same place as if he didn't move at all. Tiling was a little surprised and prepared to launch another attack. However, she found that her sword was held in Zhang Yuochen's hands. What on earth just happened? My sword. She changed her facial expression and immediately made palm positions to launch an attack on Zhang Yuochen. Zhang Yuochen took a step back and easily escaped Tuling's attack. He swung his arm up and tossed out the snake-shaped sword. That combat sword returned into the sword scabbard after it flew around Tuling. Sword wielding technique. heart integrated into the sword. Ling immediately stopped her attack and goggled at Zhang Yuochen as if she got to know the young man in front of her for the first time. How was it possible that such a young man was able to achieve heart integrated into sword? Although she was a master on the heaven board, there was still a long way for her to reach that realm. Ling was filled with deep esteem towards a young warrior who succeeded in practicing the integrated into sword made. She stopped despising him like before. Instead, her eyes were full of worship and respect. "Could I be fortunate enough to know your name?" Ling asked with joined hands. Zhang Yuochen also returned the salute with joined hands and said, "Zhang Yuochen." Ling showed a confirmative expression and said happily, "It turns out that a king of the new generation has come to the Silver Sky mercenary group. No wonder you can succeed in practicing the heart integrated into sword at such a young age. I admire you." "Is he Zhang Yuochen, one of the 6 great kings of the new generation?" It was said that he has defeated the young master of the Black Market Excellence Hall. Moreover, he's the first student among the latest group of Saint apprentices to be enrolled by the Saint Academy this year. Why does he come to our Silver Sky mercenary group? Rumor says that he has reached the realm of heart integrated into sword. If he could give some advice to us in sword techniques, our strength would definitely be improved. Most of the surrounding mercenaries heard of Zhang Yuochen's name and his story. Many young warriors among them also regarded Zhang Yuochen as their model. Now that they saw him in person, they were naturally excited. Subsequently, some people walked to Zhang Yuochen to talk about the problems they had encountered in the practice of sword techniques, hoping that he could give them some advice. Zhang Yuochen was very patient and always wore smiles on his face. He talked about sword technique and exchanged martial arts with those warriors of the Silver Sky mercenary group. Moreover, he occasionally shared his understandings of sword techniques. After 2 hours, the gate of a tower in the center of Silver Sky mercenary group was opened with a loud crash. As a faint white light was emitted from the gate, a tall woman came out from the light. She had silvery hair, icy temperament, and cold eyes. She wore combat boots and armor that exposed her flat white belly. It was Silvermoon, the commander of the Silver Sky mercenary group. She stood upon the stone steps and looked at Zhang Yuochen, and she slightly frowned. Then, she looked at Nihonglu and radiated doubts from her eyes. Nihonglu bowed to Silvermoon and said something to her through the sound wave. And then, she nodded and showed a thoughtful look. Finally, she fixed her eyes again on Zhang Yuochen and walked toward him. Upon seeing Silvermoon, those mercenaries of the Silver Sky mercenary group became quiet, stepped back, and saluted to her respectfully. They greeted simultaneously to their commander. "Is she Silvermoon, commander of the Silver Sky mercenary group?" Zhang Yuochen carefully looked at the woman walking out of the tower. Silvermoon looked like a girl in her 20s with a perfect figure. She had an ample bosom, round hips, and slender waist. In particular, she had 2 long legs that was not covered by the armor, which were as glittering and translucent as the egg white without any impurities. She obviously wore armor and had an air of coldness, but she gave people an impression of sensuality. However, Zhang Yuochen found that he couldn't recognize Silvermoon's real appearance even if he injected the genuine qi into his eye vessels. He could only see her shadow instead of her true body, as if she was in another dimension. No, that was her true body. But, her cultivation was so deep that Zhang Yuochen couldn't see through. It was far deeper than ordinary people, and she was already on the holy road. Of course, if Zhang Yuochen used his sky eye, he could see clearly her appearance and even her cultivation. But doing so would be too rude and definitely enrage her. "I didn't expect that she has arrived at such a profound realm. She is probably not be far from the half-saint realm." Zhang Yuochen could clearly see that every step Silvermoon took, the spiritual qi of the heaven and earth would vibrate as if she was the center of the universe. Even Zhang Yuochen could not mobilize the spiritual qi of the heaven and earth in front of her, even if he released the martial soul. Zhang Yuochen was highly gifted. As the old saying goes, someone will always be better than you. In the eastern region, there were also many extraordinary people and smart talents. Silvermoon and Nihonglu could be rated as smart talents. In the aspect of talent, they were better than most of the saints in the Saint Academy.